Do you ever feel like a failure? You are not alone. A few years ago, God spoke to me and told me that I was going to be a writer and a speaker. While I practically believed in Him since I was born, I was not raised in a Christian home, and my knowledge of His Word was very minimal. I laughed at Him and told Him He was going to have to give me the words because I was neither of those things, and I clearly didn't know enough to do it on my own. Well, I discovered that God never wants us to do it on our own. So I started trying to be obedient. I'm that type. I get an idea and I jump in. I started a Bible study. No one came. I started a blog. No one read it. I tried to study the Bible, but it was hard because I didn't understand it. I started a YouTube channel. No one watched it. I started a class. No one showed up. This went on for years. Then one day, God said to me, Katie, I'm ready for you to speak. I was sitting in church. I almost laughed out loud. God said it again. It's time. I started arguing with God and reminding Him of all the things that I'd done and all the failures that I'd had over the years. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had a notebook in my hand and a pen in the other, and I just started writing. I was writing so fast, my hand could barely keep up. I had no idea what I was even writing. I just started writing. When I was done, I looked down and I saw a list. It was a list of all the things that I tried that didn't work out. God gently and lovingly explained to me, that time you wrote a blog, I was teaching you how to write. That time you started a Bible study, I was teaching you how to study my word. That time you made videos, I was teaching you how to share your faith. That time that you tried to teach a class, I was teaching you how to speak. I used each and every one of those so-called failures because I needed you to learn something, because I have a plan for your life that will glorify me. Oh, it was just an incredible experience, and it reminded me of a story in Exodus. You've probably heard this story. It's the story of Moses. God called him, a nobody who wasn't able to speak well, to boldly go to the Pharaoh and demand that he release God's people from slavery. Moses didn't really want to, but after a little arguing, he went. So he went to Pharaoh, he made the request, and Pharaoh said no. And so he went to God, and God said, go again. So he went again, and Pharaoh said no. So he went back to God, and God said, go again. So he went to Pharaoh again. What do you think happened? Pharaoh said no. This happened over and over and over. I imagine at some point, Moses went to God and said, enough. I can't do this anymore. I have failed too many times. I can't do what you're calling me to do. I'm not the right person. And God said, go one more time. Well, this time when Moses went, it was different. Pharaoh said yes. So Moses leads the people out of Egypt and suddenly finds himself standing at the Red Sea with Pharaoh's army coming in behind them because Pharaoh had changed his mind. And I'm sure Moses is like, really? Really? I failed again. The people are crying. They're certain they're going to die. They said they don't even know why they came out here. And God said, watch. Watch what I am about to do. And God did the greatest miracle that anyone has ever seen. A miracle that 3,000 years later is still talked about. A miracle that people know about whether they're a Christian or not. Everybody knows about this miracle of God parting the Red Sea so that the Israelites could cross on dry land. Now, here's the thing. If Moses had gone to Pharaoh and Pharaoh said, yeah, go ahead. Take the people. There would be no miracle. There would be nothing magnificent to glorify God. There would be no reason to talk about it 3,000 years later. Moses had to fail over and over again for God's glory to be displayed. Well, God showed me that sometimes He calls you to something, and that doesn't mean it's going to be successful, at least not in your eyes. He has a plan, and it is good. And what He's going to do in the end will be worth it, even if you fail many, many times. Now, this was several years ago that this happened to me. Today, I have a bachelor's degree in religion. I have an online ministry with over 11,000 followers. I've spoken at conferences. I have 90 YouTube videos walking people through the Bible in a year and a workbook to go with it. I've written 2 mini books, and I'm working on a larger book. Now, I'm not saying these things to brag. I promise, most of the time, I feel completely inadequate. But if nothing else, I have learned to hear God's voice and obey his command, regardless of what I think is success. I have also learned he determines what a success is, not the world, him. Okay, it reminds me of one more story. The story of Isaiah, who preached for over 60 years. No one repented and went back to God, and history tells us that they ended up sawing him in half to shut him up. He died believing that he was a failure. But guess what? We've all heard of Isaiah. If you've ever opened your book, you know Isaiah, one of the greatest prophets who ever lived. I want to encourage you today. You might be trying to do something for God, but you feel like it's falling apart. Nothing is working out the way you planned. Nobody seems to care what you have to say. You're not growing your ministry. You're not gaining followers. Well, I want you to know God is interested. Whether you speak to thousands of people or just one, God honors your obedience. He has a plan for your life, and it is good. Just keep going. Keep trying new things. Keep sharing the gospel, because ultimately that is the only thing that matters. It's not about how many followers you have. It's not about how much people respect you. Dig into his word. Spend time in his presence. Listen to his voice, and leave the rest up to him. If you're struggling and need someone to pray for you, please comment and let me know. I would love to pray for you. Pray that God gives you strength and peace and patience as you persevere. Remember, he sees you as successful when you're obedient. Now go let your light shine.